Waldo, thanks again for making time to be with the Happy Engineers and myself today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Former Lieutenant Colonel, Air Force here, F-16 fighter pilot. Waldo, tell us just in brief a little bit about that background and your history to set the stage for where we may go in this conversation.
Great to be here with you, Zach. Look, I'm a past fighter pilot, a father of an 11-year-old, happily married, dodging marriage missiles occasionally, like most of us, right? Life is good for me, but I'd like to think of myself as an overachiever in some way, like most of your listeners. I love challenge and excitement and change. And so for me, the conduit to that, a great conduit, was to be in the military and to be a pilot, and above all, to be a fighter pilot, because that's the pointing edge of the spear. So I decided to become a fighter pilot, was honored to work with and learn from amazing men and women. 65 combat missions over the years in Kosovo and Serbia and Iraq. And then weaned my way from that, joined the reserve, went to business school, got into sales with a technology company, and then in mergers and acquisitions. And now I've been speaking and doing business coaching for the last 19 years. So that's kind of a broad brushstroke. But for me, it's always doing something that's challenging and exciting.
That's tremendous. And Waldo, thank you for your service. I truly appreciate that. You just made a comment that triggered something for me. This is totally unexpected to go here, but you mentioned the tip of the spear. And I wear this little arrowhead every day, and people who follow me know about the fact that the symbol in my life is that idea of wanting to be the tip of the spear in every area that I perform and am active in the world. And tell me, for you, where did that become a focus, or how does that come to life for you, that concept?
I like competition, call it a dysfunction, perhaps, maybe not getting enough love as a child, having an identical twin brother, beating the heck out of each other growing up. So I like the thrill of winning. I like the juice, the flavor, the feeling of knowing that not only did I overcome the competition, but I overcame myself. And we'll talk a little bit about this and how it shows up in our lives. But for me, as a 53-year-old guy, I'm in business for a while, I like to win. However, sometimes, as I'm learning, winning may mean losing the battle to win the war.
Yeah.
Winning may be being okay with being in a support role, doing your job, saluting smartly, being that wingman to the flight lead, and saying, I'm okay with that because I have a job to do, I have a responsibility, and I'm going to do it to the best of my absolute ability. You've got engineers, Top Guns, high type A individuals. Sometimes the best thing you could do, and many times you do in your world, is to be that support asset. You may not be tip of the spear in sales or business development or have a seat at the table all the time, but to be honorable in life, to feel good about who you are, sometimes it takes more courage to humble yourself, sublimate yourself to a greater cause and say, you know what, I'm supporting and I'm going to kick some ass in this support role and I'm going to do my job. And when I'm asked to lead and be the pointing edge of the spear, I'll do that as well. But there's different ways that we can lead with the context of getting the mission done. And you may not always need to be out front.
I love that. I want to dig into so much of what you just said, but before I do, can you take us back to the origin point where Waldo fell in love with the idea of being a pilot? I picture myself as a little kid. I had, all the fighter jet models, and I'd run around the house making noise, pretending to be one. And I didn't end up one, and you did. So where did that part of you get its start, Waldo? When did you know this is what I'm going to do with my life?
So my dad was a mechanic at Kennedy Airport in New York City for 35, 40 years, was a crew chief in the Navy as well. I remember when I was 10 or 11 years old, my dad took me and my identical twin brother, Dave, to the airport for a little tour to show what he did. And he popped us into the cockpit. I saw the machine. Actually, I think I have a picture here. I'll show you. Popped us into the cockpit. This is a F-16, but a little different than the 747. But essentially, I started to play with the switches and said, Dad, what's this place for? And he said, it's the cockpit. It's where the pilot flies the plane. And I knew then that I didn't want to fix the planes like my dad. I wanted to fly them. And so I remember he said, hey, that's a great idea, Rob, but it may not be the best career choice because you're massively afraid of heights. And I told him I'd find a way. And so my passion was greater than my fear. I just got that glimpse, the smell of jet fuel, looking at the engines and the cockpit. And then when I got older in high school, my guidance counselor introduced me to the Air Force Academy. He knew I was basically an overachiever and wanted to show me, hey, here's something that you could do to be with great men and women, top performing leaders. And if you want to fly, great place to go as well. So basically that's kind of the impetus to it. But I remember as a kid playing soccer, looking at the planes, calling them out. That's a 747, that's a DC-10, that's a Lockheed 1011. And everybody's like, you're manic about planes. But
Yeah, they're supposed to be
eventually
looking at the grass, Waldo. Then stop looking
yeah,
in the
yeah,
air. We're
right.
playing soccer.
Maybe I was on the sidelines too much more than I would have liked. Who knows? But
That's amazing.
so that's basically what it was. And I was just fascinated with it and became passionate about it. And that passion overcame my fear. And that's really what courage is. It's stepping outside of your comfort zone and saying, hey, I may be afraid of heights. And I also became claustrophobic, which is another part of the story that we can share. But when you look at courageous leadership, which is something that you talk about, it's the ability to not be fearless, which a lot of speakers and consultants talk about. I just think that's not a context of humanity that's common or normal. The fear, the bubbling up of anxiety, the stress, some of the pain that goes through the preparation needed to step out of your comfort zone requires courage. And flying through that, taking some risks, stepping out of your comfort zones, jumping off of 33 feet high diving boards, which I needed to do to graduate the academy, and facing my fear of heights are things that we need to do in our personal lives. So the question, I guess the audience needs to hear is, what is that discomfort, that 33 feet high diving board, that panic attack, that fear that's kind of latent inside of you, or very present every day, that you need to break free of in order to accomplish your goals, live your dreams, get the promotion, etc.
So, Waldo, this is super interesting. And most people that I meet assume that, hey, you're a special breed if you become a fighter pilot. You must have loved heights and you must be really good in small spaces. And this all came naturally to you. And I'm here to say, like, total opposite. Tell us about the journey through that fear. How does somebody put that into their own journey? What is that all about?
The number one thing you have to think about is what is on the opposite side of that fear. Like, you need to know the meaning to your mission. I call it the why before you fly. What is it that you're going for, that if when you strap it to your plane, your cockpit of life, and face the fears, the missiles, the turbulence, the headwinds, etc., that you're willing to grind through that and face that because there's a gift, a benefit, a goal achieved on the other side that's going to fulfill you very deeply, very intrinsically. And many of us fly by the seat of our pants, or we wing it, or we just don't have this vector, this true north of what we're doing every day. And this, in my opinion, is the gift of having a long-term compelling goal that stretches you. This is the gift for me as a father of an 11-year-old that drives me. A lot of what I do and what I've done is for the gift and the example I could set to my son and to the people that I mentor formally and informally. And so for me, it's always setting the example. Okay, number one. So what is it that the meaning, and you have to think about it as somebody listening to this or in life, saying, what is it the heck that I'm doing? Why do I really want to do this? Is it my ego? Which it can only last so long. Is there something outside of yourself, something that you know that's going to drive you? That's the big thing. You need that true north, right? Any thoughts on that, Zach?
I love this concept. And one thing I hear from people I speak to is a bit of, maybe I'll call it a wavering faith about what's on the other side of fear is worth it. Like, I know what I hope it is that I'm going towards, but between me and that thing is fear, and I don't actually know if I'm going to get it on the other side. So this idea of, is my true north, is my vision that I'm aiming towards, will it actually happen if I face all these obstacles? And sometimes there's a wavering faith that actually then takes that fuel out of theirs. There's just, they don't have it, right? They don't want to do those hard things. And I'm curious for you, how do you build that deep sense of faith and confidence or conviction that it's worth it, that going across, pushing through this will actually take me where I want to go.
Well, you need an example in some way in your life of somebody who's achieved or have a taste of what it's like to achieve. Some people have dreams, but they may be somebody else's dream, or they don't really know what it's like. For me, I didn't really know I had a dream to fly fighters or planes until my dad sat me in the cockpit. When I recruited for the Air Force Academy, some of these kids said they wanted to be in the military, they wanted to fly. And I'm like, well, have you ever sat in a plane? Have you ever talked to a pilot? What did you do? And they have this false sense of a dream that may not even be their own or just some fantasy. So
Yeah.
you need to put some bricks and mortar to that dream, whatever it is, to see an example of that success. If you want to be a black belt like Bruce Lee, right? I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee,
Yeah.
such an amazing legend, even after decades of being gone. Like you witness that. As somebody sees Chuck Yeager or watches the Blue Angels or Thunderbirds fly, they see that's what I want to do. And I talked to other pilots and I studied aviation and learned about what peak performance was. So it's having an example, not just coming up with some false imaginary goal, but then seeking others who have been there and then looking for mentorship and guidance and helping you to prepare to get in that. The sense of confidence for me was knowing that I was going to do the work.
Yeah.
That being a fighter pilot, getting accepted to the Air Force Academy, being the best in class required me to do all the steps before that. Do well in school, be great at sports, stay out of trouble, volunteer for leadership positions. It honed my character and it caused some scars and calluses. But I'm confident as a man, as a human being, as a father, as a husband, because I do the work, right? I'm doing the work. And so any of you out there who are looking for this goal and this dream, and you're looking to build up that confidence, you have to say, well, I'm reading the books, I'm attending the seminars, I'm listening to the podcasts, I'm humbling myself, asking for help in areas that are weak in my life, and then saying, who do I need to contact? What vector correction do I need to take? And who can be an example to me, a mentor, a coach, to guide me on that path rather than just flying along the world, a victim of change and circumstance. And as soon as the headwinds come, I'm just not going to do it. The fear is going to overwhelm me.
Yeah.
And so those are some things I think you need to do.
This idea of the training, doing the work, you're putting in the reps. I'm curious for you, how do you discern the difference if somebody is in that process, they're doing the work, they're on their way toward their North Star, toward their vision, versus someone who's doing work, but they're actually just hiding in a comfort zone, kind of doing the same thing over and over. Maybe they're over consume. They listen to podcasts all the time, right? But that's all they do is listen, and they're not actually moving towards the goal. What would you say, or how would you help someone to discern which one of those two camps they might be in? Just staying busy versus you're training towards the goal.
So you got to assess the amount of pain and struggle that you go through your day. If I'm talking to somebody that's learning or failing, I don't think you fail. You're either winning or learning, and all those things are helping you to grow. Show me what you're doing during your day. Tell me what you're doing differently. Show me where you sweat, sacrifice, felt a little pain and discomfort. When you show me that, then I'll say, okay, you're on a trajectory for growth and success. If you're comfortable doing what you're doing, we've all heard this before, by the way. If you're comfortable doing what you're doing, then you may just be philosophizing and what I call all thrust and no vector, right? For the engineers are like that, all thrust and no vector. You need direction, you need movement into a certain area. So this degree of pain that you're willing to withstand, interrupting your standard protocols, that'll lead to growth. And you could look at this in your health and fitness and you're working out. I had this little smoothie today. I'm weaning myself from sugar, doing a little diet here to kind of clean up some of the residual COVID calories, whatever. I'm in pretty good shape, but I'm like, okay, got to get a little uncomfortable. I was in the gym yesterday. I went out of my way to make sure that, like, you have to look at some of the inconveniences in your life that will force you to go through little pains, trials, tribulations, and grow. So that's really, really key. And if you're just kind of looking for excuses, you're probably not going to be evolving to where
that's
you want
a
to
really
go.
Simple but powerful message. And Waldo, maybe this is my perception. I'm curious if it's yours, but I feel like that's a countercultural thing to assess as a attribute of are you moving towards success? We seem to want more vacations, more Mai Tais on the beach, more ease in our life as the goal. And rather than to say, you know what, really, if you're not experiencing some trial, some tribulation, some sweat, some challenge, facing fear, you got to question, are you all thrust no vector?
Yeah, yeah.
Would you agree? I mean, it feels countercultural to me.
It is. But here's another thing, and there's another point that forces me to step out of my comfort zone and help me accomplish my missions in fear. I talked about having that compelling goal, that vision of what you want to become, but also the feeling that you get when you're done going through the trial, when you're done lifting the weight, when you're done going through the diet, and you look at your body and you're like, I lost the 6 pounds and my body fat's leaner. The feeling, the juice, the energy, the mindset shift that happens when you know deep down that you accomplished the goal and won, that feeling, the endorphins that you create, that's that inner juice that builds the confidence. So I have a saying, pain leads to peace. And peace, in my opinion, is just being good at where you're at. You're comfortable where you're at, this quiet confidence that says, I'm at peace now because I know I did all the work. No one may have seen it. No one knows the study, the sweat, the sacrifice, the insight, the neglect that I had to put in my life in order to gain something else. So that peace is what we're seeking, and that joy that's incumbent in that peace, knowing that you did the work. So when I would do these 7 or 8 hour night combat missions, facing a panic attacks and a fear of heights, I almost died in a scuba diving accident. Long story short, folks, I developed claustrophobia 3 years into my flying career. A few days after the scuba diving incident, I was flying along in terrible weather and had a panic attack, developed claustrophobia, like I got to get the heck out of this plane. And so for the next 8 years of my 11-year flying career, every time I strapped into that plane to do what I loved more than anything else, I had to deal with this missile, this demon that threatened to paralyze me and keep me in the hangar of fear instead of airborne, facing my fears, courageous, potentially getting shot at, but living, being in the cockpit, not missing an action, but making it happen in the sky. But so your ability to strap into that jet and face those fears is critical. But after I did one mission, after having a panic attack and landed, freaked out, and said, I can't do this anymore. And then put the wings back on and said, one more mission, one more flight, just take one more step forward. It got easier and easier. So 8-hour missions in Iraq or Kosovo, the missiles were bothering me, but the claustrophobia, that was the real fear. And when I'd land, Zach, I'd land and taxi in, I'm like, man, no one knew the chaos that just ensued. No one knew that anxiety and craziness, this combat mission I had up here in my head. And I'm taxiing in saying another victory over the most important enemy or friend there is, which is ourselves. And I said, I did it. No one took that away from me. It was my own personal victory. And that's what built up the resilience and my courage and my ability to build credibility in coaching people and doing my programs now, because that's the real juice. It's not a fear like, oh, I was afraid of being rejected, or I was afraid of being, I was Jewish fighter pilot, right? There was a little bit of, anti-Semitism growing up, but I don't live as a victim, right? I never looked at, but I'm talking about 30,000 feet with missiles being launched, saying, I got to bail out of this plane because I'm going to jump through my skin. I'm facing true fear, not simulated or psychological BS. But when we overcome ourselves, that builds confidence, and it often causes scars, but it builds up this sense of compassion and empathy that we need as leaders, mostly with ourselves when we do fail / learn, that we're going to get back in the cockpit and say, I'm doing it again. I've got that true north. I want to get that feeling again of overcoming myself. And that's something that no other person can give you.
Waldo, this really resonates for me because in my story, building my career, engineering leader, things are going great. And the missiles in my day-to-day life, dealing with challenges at work and solving big problems and hitting deadlines and meeting budgets, this sort of external stuff that was flying around that you had to deal with. But yeah, those things were at times scary to me, but I also had this internal struggle of my marriage collapsing, things at home not going well, dealing with all this stuff in my own head. And so just this combination of like, yeah, there's things in the world to be afraid of, but a lot of times we've got something between our ears that's causing just as much or more difficulty in moving through the
Yeah.
day, and both take courage to overcome. I found that true self-esteem is on the other side of that victory. To your point, when you do the hard thing, you get through, like that feeling you're talking about. It's the closest thing I can think of that relates to real, genuine esteem, is when you've gone through it to the other side. And that, to me, that's the only word I have for that feeling. I'm not sure there
Yes,
is
sir.
another one, but awesome to hear that. What is for you then, if you go into this stretch of the 8 years after that happened? So you're overcoming every single flight, this part of you that wants to say, don't get in the cockpit, and you're doing it anyway. It starts to get easier. What for you is the process of maintaining courage? Like, is it something that once you have it, it's always there? Or do you find it's something you have to continuously face and work on? Or what's that strength or resilience? You mentioned sort of building the resilience. Like, how does that
Yeah.
unfold?
Yeah. So this is really, really important. I want to go back a little bit on, I call it envisioning the victory. Envision the victory. So if you're getting ready to fly, do something that you're going to step out of your comfort zone with. Envision that feeling, the feeling of landing your jet, accomplishing it, being on the stage, getting the promotion, getting the job, your spouse saying yes, starting your own business. How does that feel? And let that embrace you, and it kind of gives you that true north once again. For me, the last thing, and then I want to get into that last question, it's the next level of facing your fears is knowing who you're flying for and facing your fears for. And so as a parent, as a leader, as somebody who loves and truly wants to serve others, many times you commit more and face more fears for others than you do for yourself. So when I was leading men and women in combat, or supporting my leaders as a wingman, as a teammate, when I focused on them, when I said, I have to support them, I got to have their back, I need to look out for the missiles and stay mission ready and be an asset as opposed to a liability, it got me focused on my responsibility as a fighter pilot with these wings on, that I needed to do this for them, and it was my damn job.
Yeah.
So passion only gets us so far. Envisioning the victory and the joy and the thrill of victory can only get us so far. The next ultimate level, and truly the one that allows others to perform at maximum performance, is to think outside of your cockpit. Focus on those who need you, who are depending on you, and then get aligned with that. Then you distract yourself from yourself. And you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not even afraid anymore. And if you're a parent afraid of heights, looking at that 33 feet high diving board, if you're a parent, you may not jump, but if you're looking at your child drowning in the water, screaming, Mommy, Daddy, help me, you're jumping, you're
Done.
doing it in a
Done.
heartbeat. And this
Yeah.
is why service and courage is love in action. And this is why so many of the great leaders and the warriors of the world have this sense of responsibility for helping their teammates. And this is what drives you forward. And helped me stay in the cockpit, because there was no way I was letting down my wingman on those flights. I'm like, that ego, the sense of responsibility for helping them, I'm like, I'm not going to be quitting because they need me. And that's how you stay present. And then suddenly the claustrophobia / anxiety or whatever is
Yes.
gone.
Waldo, can you
That's how
say
you
that
stay in
again? You
flow.
said courage is love in action.
Yeah. So courage is love in action, or service is love in action. But courage ultimately is service in action. It's love in action. And it may be loving yourself, which is sometimes the hardest love there is. One other thing with this, resilience isn't just, and this is important now as we deal with COVID combat and struggles in life, resilience isn't just about, hey, I'm having a hard day, I'm going to go take a nap, listen to some music, smell a rose, take a walk, pet my dog, and kind of get into nature. I think all those things are important, right? And really creating that environment. But if you really want to be a top performer, a fighter pilot, a Top Gun, resilient leader in life with courage, you're going to expose yourself to those missions where you're grinding through the crucible, you're burning your skin, you're scarring yourself, and you're experiencing that panic and fear that only happens when you're out there up front on that pointing edge. When if you're in fitness and you're running, right? You know, that pain and fear, and you know that you're running and you're sweating and you're having that anxiety, whatever. Once again, that confidence that you build, the resilience is like saying to yourself, hey, I've been there before. Resilience is, and courage is also a byproduct of saying, look, I faced those fears before. I've stepped out of my comfort zone. I know what it's like to be running 10 miles and or doing those weights and you want to pass out. It's not as foreign to me. So the more you do these fear invoking things, the more likely you will still do the ones that may be new to you, but saying, hey, I could do this because I've done it before. And that is true resilience. And that is true strength. So the more you expose yourself to these things, the more you'll be able to feel comfortable doing them. And also the more you'll be an example to others who are looking to you for guidance, right? So think about that. Exposing yourself to those fear-inducing things builds the resilience and your ability to face those fears, not just coping with change, right? By, you know, sipping a latte, having dark chocolate, or hugging your dog, right?
Right.
Which are all great things too. Okay, back to that other question that you asked me. I apologize if you have to
That's
ask
okay.
it again.
It's
Because I
perfect.
want that. It's really important stuff. So now 8 years later, I think you said, how do I deal with it now? Like, can you share?
Yeah, so I will ask it again, but I want to quickly connect the dot and tell me if I'm getting this right, because the idea of resilience coming through being willing to face these things and being able to say, I have been there before, I've done this before, I've overcome things before. That's that source of true resilience. Earlier you mentioned, yeah, I don't believe in failure. I either succeed or I'm growing. Forget this concept of failing. I'm either winning or I'm learning and growing. Does it matter if you're winning or if you're still in a learning mode when it comes to building resilience? Do you have to have the victory to build resilience, or is it enough to just say, I faced it and I learned and I faced it again and I'm still learning? Does that process equally build resilience? Can you just link those two for me?
I think it does. Because, like, once again, second place may not feel good to you, right? If you're competing or whatever, but hey, I'm evolving, I'm growing. But this is where inherent confidence comes from.
Yeah.
When you see
Yeah.
confident people, especially in certain things, and I have lacked confidence in certain areas, but I know I'm confident when it comes to leadership, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to keynote speaking, when it comes to running an entrepreneurial business. I'm pretty confident. I'm not as confident in some other areas, right? And it's normally, I'm not confident in areas that I haven't been working on, that I haven't been exposing to. Look, we talked about this room, like, you know, looking at my image here, you know, with my background, I got the jet here, I got this nice microphone, you know, both of us got good lighting, we got good sound. That confidence comes because we took the courage to take some risks and we seeked more information and skills and we worked at it.
Yeah.
Right? So the work, the progression, the tilling of the soil may not reap a whole, you know, bunch of corn, but if you get a good couple stalks out of it, it's better than nothing. And you can replant those and build up some more courage and skills and confidence in the long run. So you don't always have to win, but that incoming confidence, that's a byproduct of that effort's key. But then also you may not be working in the right area as well. This is why my concept of never flying solo and having a wingman, a trusted partner in your life, is key. Because if I was coaching you, Zach, or you were coaching me, you may say, well, Waldo, tell me about what you're doing in your day to build resilience and growth. And I may say, I'm doing this and this. And you may say, well, have you thought about this? Or maybe you need to do this differently, or somebody else did that and failed. So the perspectives of others, mentors, coaches, peers, friends, partners, where they're going to give you some ideas and advice. It could be through a podcast like you're doing here. That is also the key to being humble and vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I'm not getting where I need to be fast enough. I keep trying and I'm getting scarred, but I'm not progressing. Maybe it's because you're not doing the right things, or you need to just have a vector correction and having somebody in your life who can help you.
Okay. I love that.
That is the key, right? And if you're flying in your cockpit solo, hey, everything's going good. And somebody I love dearly does pretty well, but he very rarely seeks other insights. But when you seek, you shall find. In addition to giving help to others and helping them, now you got to say, hey, mayday, mayday, I need some help. How do I improve here? And that
Mm,
takes courage and vulnerability in and of itself. This is
amazing.
why you shouldn't be flying solo. So
Never fly solo. I love that. So, all right. So take us back to the cockpit. You
yeah,
have this incident and a story for another episode. We'll come back. You develop claustrophobia, very inconvenient for a fighter pilot in a small space.
yes.
And you have to overcome this. Every single time you get in that F-16, you're facing this part of your psychology that's get me out of the cockpit. And what I'm curious about is, did that ever go away completely? Is it like, hey, once you face that demon and you've claimed victory, it's over? Or like a year later, 5 years later, 8 years later, what was that like?
Okay, this is going to be the most important part of this podcast, something that I rarely talk about, but I came up with it recently a few years ago. Your fears never go away. They're subjugated to your courage, to your joy, to how you live. Let me give you an example. Let's say there's no music playing right now, but tell me about your favorite type of music and what type of music do you not like, Zach? Give me, what music do you not like at
Oh
all?
man, so it's so hard to pick, but my favorite type of music is usually Christian worship music, because I love what it does for me in my spiritual life. So Charlie Hall or a Matt Redman or David Crowder band or something like that. I love that kind of music. But as far as don't like, honestly, probably the thing I don't like the most is some of this, really emo kind of stuff that doesn't have a consistent rhythm, and I can't dance to it. Anything that I can't dance to, I don't like, because
Okay, good.
I like the beat. So that's my bucket.
Well, let's call the bad music thug rap, for that matter.
Sure,
Really,
sure.
really demeaning rap or whatever. And there's some really good rap as well out there. And then Christian music is your music of joy. Thug rap is a music of fear. So let's say the thug rap's going on, boom, boom, boom. You hear it. You have it in the room right now, and it's kind of low, but you hear it in your back, right? And for others, it's country music or
Sure.
whatever, right? So you hear that music going on, and that's the fear. That's like the angst, the anxiety going on. Now, when you pop on another set of speakers, your Christian music or your Tchaikovsky or whatever, and you start raising it up, you hear both of them initially, but if you raise the music high enough of that Christian rock, it'll drown out the thug rap, right?
Yeah.
Does it mean the thug rap or the rap of music that you don't like isn't there? Is it still there?
Totally.
It's still there.
Yeah.
But it's being drowned out by the music of joy, of what you love. And your job in life is to do the things to drown out that fear, the scar, the negativity, through your relationships, through your focus on God or whatever it is, your faith, through your health and fitness, through your meditation or whatever that is. And what happens many times is if you start hanging out with the wrong people, music starts, the volume starts lowering. You don't take care of your health and fitness, the music starts lowering. You have a bad experience in life and you experience some trauma, music starts lowering. And then that negative music doesn't need to increase. It just becomes more audible to you. And that's the challenge in life. My claustrophobia will never go away. I had a panic attack, a mini one, just a few weeks ago in the airport. I was thinking of something. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I've been helping someone I love going through a very tough time. And I'm watching this happen, Zach. I'm watching my heart rate go up and anxiety. I wanted to jump out of my skin. And I just started taking some deep breaths and did what I did before to overcome my fears. And it went away. Your job in life is to just keep elevating that music and minimizing that and drowning out that fear. It just doesn't go away, for that matter. And so when you live a healthy lifestyle and surround yourself with love and joy and peace and all those things, that's the key. And so that's my job right now. And that's how and why I work out and why I help other people and I do pro bono work, or why I get joy out of things in life. Why I love my 1-year-old Great Dane puppy, Willie, because I could be in a bad mood and, I grab him and kiss him. He's fun. And why I love watching my son play soccer and coaching him in before he goes to bed on overcoming fear, and then doing things with my wife that watches her lift up her joy in life. So that's the key. And That's the struggle and the joy of life and going through that journey. Don't be afraid that that fear is going to come back. And don't have the unrealistic expectation that the fear will go
Just go
away.
away. Yeah.
You just got to sublimate it to the music of that brings joy and presence in your life.
That's a perfect place for us to just let that sit and marinate. And perfect metaphor. I mean, so simple to appreciate that. Like, hey, it's not about trying to use my energy to make that other music stop. You're going to burn a lot of calories and not get a lot of reward. And what I found, Waldo, is actually trying to do that actually just turns the volume up on it because I'm focused on it all the time. It's like all I can hear.
Point.
And I love this. Like, just take the actions, focus on the things that are going to crank the volume on what is good in your life: courage, love, joy, passion, that vector that we talked about earlier. So
I wanted, by the way, my goal, and I've been speaking professionally for 19 years. I need to do a TED talk on that. I want to call it something like Confessions of a Claustrophobic Fighter Pilot and share that story and share that analogy to people. And this is why I'm doing more on courage and why I eventually want to start a courage podcast. I coined the phrase courage monger. There's enough fear mongers out there. I want to be the courage monger, giving folks the courage.
Amazing.
Painful,
amazing.
You know?
Well, you're going to get 1,000% support from Zach White if you do anything related to that, because courage is my jam, man. I just love it.
Yes,
I
sir.
love that.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, Waldo, let's land the plane, so to speak. And I always land in the same place. So this is not at the Navy with a moving carrier. This is a nice stable runway. It's always in the same spot. I have found, and I believe 100% to be true, that great coaching, great engineering, it all begins with the questions that we ask, because questions lead, the answers follow. And if we want to get different answers, we need to ask better questions.
Sure.
So for that engineering leader who's been listening to this conversation and they want to experience greater courage that leads to greater success in these areas that are aligned with their North Star, with their vector, what would be the best question that you would lead them with today?
So I think, and this is based on my wingman philosophy of creating trusting partners in the world, a wingman, wing persons, however you look at it. When the proverbial poop hits the fan, when you're strapping in that jet and you know the missiles are coming, you know the enemies across the border and you're going to have to face them, are you willing to ask others for help? And do you have a squadron of men and women in your life who, before you go, you can call them for help, for encouragement, to lift you up? I have a saying, leaders lift, who's going to coach you and give you that inspiration? Who's going to lift you up and say, you can do this, I believe in you? Who's going to give you the idea on how to face your fear and the actions you need to take? The more of those men and women you have in your life, and the more you use them and leverage them, the less likely you'll be afraid to take that action. Because as human beings, as children of God, as members of our community, when we work together and we create that inspiration by seeking out others who can help us, then we're able to step out of our comfort zones and truly create a life of meaning. And then finally, the next level is, who needs you to be that wingman? Who needs you to face that courage? Who can you create that example for and lift up through the pain and trial and tribulation that you went through to build that growth and resilience? Because as a father, this is what I do for my son. For people who are listening in the dungeon of life, think of those who are going to be impacted by the challenges that you overcome. And that'll give that meaning to your mission and help you to take the next level.
I'm excited by that. I'm energized. Waldo, thank you so much for your time today. And I know everybody listening is going to want to get more from you and just learn about your work and hear more of the stories and the learnings and lessons from what you've done. So where can people go to get plugged in with Waldo Waldman and learn more?
So number one, Google Waldo Waldman. My website's yourwingman.com, yourwingman.com. I'm all over Instagram. LinkedIn is my primary thing. That's where we've connected, Zach, and great job following up. And I always see you gifting other people with comments and posts, and you practice what you preach, by the way. And
Thank
so
you.
I'm thankful for our friendship and the fact that we marinated that over the last few years. So Instagram, Waldo Waldman, LinkedIn, Twitter, et cetera. And then I'm going to, on behalf of you and our friendship, I'm going to, on the screen, there's a QR code and a website, yourwingman.com/NFS, like Never Fly Solo. That's a free audiobook download of my New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, Never Fly Solo. It's $20 on Audible, published by McGraw-Hill. But my gift to the world is the fact that I own the rights to the audiobook and I can give it away for free. So there it is right there.
Wow.
And so share it with your peers, give it to your kids.
Amazing.
That's how folks should get in touch with me, and now get on my newsletter, et cetera, from that as well.
Perfect. Waldo, thanks for your generosity in that. And if anybody's listening on Apple or Spotify, not catching the video, jump on our website, oasisofcourage.com, and grab it, or we'll make sure you get access to that link. And I cannot say enough about how powerful Waldo is as a speaker and a leader to change the mindset and the culture of your organization. So if you want to bring Waldo into your company, it is a game-changing experience for certain. So please reach out to Waldo directly and his team if that interests you, and read the book, listen to the book, look at his YouTube videos. I mean, this guy is just so much fun. So Waldo, thanks again. Tremendous to have you on the show, and hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Great to fly with you and get to know you as a person, Zach. Thanks for the gift that you give others as well. It's been an honor.